Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? How is it going? I hope everybody is well. It looks like we have a good number of folks already in the chat. Hello, the chat. You've been the chatting for a while. Asha Llewellyn, what's going on? Happy Friday the 13th to everybody watching live and or on the replay. You survived if you're watching the replay. Freddie didn't get you, or Jason, or whichever one of those guys. Those wild and crazy guys. So, how is it going, Jamie? A, good to see you. Fish Tropic, Canada, good to see you. Chakizi, hello. Jose Torres, Richard Bunt, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Let's see here. Hey, all your fish don't live long. I wonder why that is. Your fingers are never out the aquarium and you put so many chemicals in your tank. Wait, what? My fingers are always in my tanks. Yes, that is for sure. I don't put many chemicals in my tanks at all, though. I do put many live plants in my tanks. And I don't have any algae right now. So I don't know what you're talking about, Richard. Are you talking to me? Let's see here. Emma, what's up? Dan, good to see you. I know we were talking this morning. Good to see you. Nancy B, hello. Chakizi, Linda Worth, Luke Wang, what's up, Luke? Good to see you. Desora Tees, Jamie, hello. Let's see here. Who else is around here? James Hand, what's up? Good to see you too. I need to stop saying that's my New Year's pledge. Stop saying how about does that work, guys? Street Trash, what's up? Good to see you. Discordia Creates. La 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 la. Rayburn 127. No, I've not built Lego. I've not bought Legos to build a filter. It just hasn't been on the forefront of my things to do. But if I can find a good Lego impeller that's out there, I will definitely look into that more. I just honestly haven't thought about it because of traveling the country and all that kind of stuff. That I mean, I was looking at that Google report it gives you at the beginning of every year if you use Google heavily. And I don't know, I have this on still. I was outside earlier. It was really cold. But there's this Google report that shows you everywhere you've been, and I was like, holy cow, I've been to it said 490 cities this year. And I mean that counts all the ones you drive through and stuff too, but still I was like, wow. And it's got my past years and they're all boring. And then there's one crazy year way back when. But it's good to know that Google is following me, everywhere I go. Aqua Dude H2O, greetings from Germany. Guten Nacht or Guten Morgen. Is it morning or night? No, I think it's night. Guten Nacht. Passing Wind. Hello. Moose. Hello. I don't know why everybody's talking about my algae. Hold on, let me show you the tanks right now. I think people maybe are watching old videos where I have a problem with algae in a tank, and then I show how I fix it over the course of a week or two, and I show it when it's at its worst, after I've been traveling. That might be the case, but let me here, let's do a little look at the tanks right now real quick before we start, just so everyone's on the same page. Do I do amphibians and reptiles, Pansy? No, I don't. I do like amphibians. I mean, I like reptiles too. My wife just does not. Greetings from Belgium. Ah, greetings. Why can't I think of any French right now? Comme ci, comme ça? Ça va? I'm comme ci, comme ça, but ça va? All right, we're gonna do this thing with two. This party time. I wonder if I can turn this mic or this camera sideways on this other camera yet, if it's still acting a fool. Act a fool. Hey, there we are. Gaze into infinity, everybody. Can I say hi to you in New Zealand? Yeah, Rayburn, for sure. In Maori? Yeah. There you go. That's your hello. Treasure detecting. What's going on? Linkmaster Supreme, good to see you. Let's see here. All right, so I'm pulling up this camera. Yeah. And why is it not? Okay, there we go. Sorry. All right. So we're going on a walk because we've got some trolling in the chat that I have so much algae. So here is my big tank with all my fish. Now the angelfish, they spawn back in here. They have a whole area that's loose. It's loose big crypts, and then this is sticks that's elevated off the floor of the tank, so they can actually swim all the way under and come out on this side. It's just moss that's growing over there. Now there is a little bit of algae here, and that's because I was growing out the Aponigeton, the purple Aponigeton crispus, that was flowering, and I had to have the red wavelengths of light to simulate the end of the season. But this is the tank right now. We've got lots of little fishies in here and lots of plants in here. I just trimmed it about, I guess last night I trimmed some, and I trimmed some the day before that, and I'm about to send out some plants to some people who sent me plants. I also need to trim out this side, but the angelfish seem to want some cover because this pair, this gal here and this gal here, although I'm wondering if she's pairing off with the black one that's over here, because the black ones that are in this tank, usually they're on their own. They're two males, but now they seem to be pairing off with the, like they may have switched, and the cross between the two of them might have been really interesting. So then we've got this tank, and this tank has no actual algae. The problem that this tank has is that it has, I mean, all tanks have algae. I shouldn't say that. Like all tanks have a little bit. If you look carefully on like some of the plants, there's some little wispies here and there. But if you've ever kept Rotala wallachia, Rotala inni, Rotala atra, kabamba, and these kind of plants, you'll know that these Mayaka, you'll know that it's actually really difficult to keep them completely free of algae, and they're pretty free of algae. Jeff Kane says, don't play with trolls. But so in any case, well, yeah, I know, but I just want anybody who's watching, so we can talk about, because I'm gonna be talking about in this episode, first of all, like if you guys have questions, we'll talk about that. But if no, if it just ends up being me rambling on and on and on, then what we're gonna talk about are my aquarium horror stories. And so I wanted to show you guys that if you're new, if you haven't watched a live before, that I'm not completely inept when it comes to aquariums. Now, the other thing is that I am today starting CO2 again on these tanks. So there's that. I don't, I thought CO2 was causing these plants to grow too fast. So I unplugged it months ago, especially with my travels. But now I'm realizing that CO2 is actually, with such a strong light, with Twin Star, that CO2 is causing the plants to grow denser and more colorfully. And when they don't have CO2, they race to the light. And then when they get to the top, they just turn into a tangled, immersed mess like up here. And that's fun and all, because I've been hybridizing Ludwigias. So see these little flowers? You can look for the male flower parts and the female flower parts, and then you can cross different species if you want, which is fun. And this light will do that. This light is capable of flowering them. So this is the one that has a flower right now is a Rubin glandulosa cross, a Ludwigia Rubin crossed with a glandulosa, and you can see the leaves are actually half red. So just the tips of the leaves, when immersed, end up red on that one. It's all tangled up with a bunch of repens, glandulosa, and other stuff too. But this back here is where, I mean, one, this acts as a giant biofiltration. And this is why I don't have to add nitrates, nitrogen, Daphnia, anything like that, because this is such a tight mat floating like this that it's just like Lake Titicaca or any of the lakes that have the floating reeds, like Inlay. A lot of the tanks or a lot of the lakes like that, they've actually got floating islands, they call them. They're not really an island, but they're floating mats of material, and then they suck all the nitrates and things out. And then under that, you can see what I need to do is trim the roots, but underneath that, it's actually it's all open area, that black void, for the fish to swim under there. So the fish, if they get scared, they tend to go straight back or back into the corners. So this looks like it's overgrowing out, but it's really a moat of plants, and then there's a void, and then there's also an area yay big of space. So that's that. Let's take a look in here. Oh, yeah, my lights are on way too much, aren't they? Oh, wait, like one tank has lights on. Yeah, people, think before you speak. Or like at least look at my content, all of it. That's a silly thing to say. Nobody's going to look at all of your content. Why did I say that? But so this tank, if you guys recall, this tank has been the subject of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? It's the craziest algae ever, yada, yada, blah, 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 blah. And now I don't have any algae. In fact, I've got gouramis spawning. Whoa, did you guys see that fish jump? I have gouramis spawning in here, and their little nests are right over along the edges. I'm not going to disturb them because they've been there a few days, but it's the Lake Inlay domesticated variety. So these are the little honey guys, or sometimes they go by Sunset. Look at him feeling up the Rhamnocentris with his little barbels. But I've got males and females, and then we've got the Rhamnocentris or Nodus, which aren't Lake Inlay, and then we've got the CPDs, which are Myanmar / Lake Inlay Basin. We've got the Chopra Danios, also Inlay. And we've got the true inlay, the more wild form of the same gourami. So this is the thick lip. This is the domesticated thick lip. That's really the difference. And then we've got some tin winnies, which are found in the creeks and streams on the eastern slope of the mountain. And then we've got erythromicron, which are the striped emerald dwarf rasboras. Even though they're not a rasbora, they're a danio. They're also in here. Now, I just got a call from my buddy at the store nearby, Aquarium Zen, that they have glassfish from Lake Inlay in the store right now, and they're like $12 a piece. They have 6 of them. And I was debating getting some and swapping out some of the gouramis. Since these aren't technically the kind you'd see in the wild right here, these are domesticated varieties. So then that would leave us with the more plain wild stock gourami. Not this guy. He's a perfect example of the domestication. This is the female of that domestication. But the thick lip wild gouramis are they have some stripes and some orange when they're all colored up. The sunsets or the honeys, they're kind of interchangeable. They've also been crossed and hybridized. It's hard to tell. Now, Siamese algae eater, not actually part of Lake Inlay ecosystem, but I left it in here while I was traveling. And see, these are likely to cross. So that big male that is a wild type versus the little honey. And the CPDs, I want you guys to take note. If you guys have ever had CPDs, look how friendly they are in this tank, because these plants are the plants that are, for the most part, I put a couple different plants like this kabamba and a few other things that aren't native to them. But for the most part, the plants are what they have natively. And in Southeast Asia or Myanmar specifically. And the CPDs, the more cover you give them, the more they will come out and be a part of the community, which I always think is cool to see. Now, I'm also filtering or cycling up on a sponge filter for another tank. Probably going to get rid of a bunch of this. And this tank is a little cooler than all the other tanks. Now, this tank, this is the one that's had the diatom algae all over the glass. See it? And it is dirty, but just the glass, not the actual water. In here, we've got some Aphanis, Synodontis aphanis, that are big. Look at that pattern that the nearite snails leave. And then we've got one species. This is basically a one species tank. This is the Haplochromis, and I'm kind of tired of them. I'm not gonna lie. This tank here is I'm tired of, just because they're so aggressive. They'll kill any other fish in their tank, for the most part, and they don't color up all the time. They're mouth brooders, and they hide while they're mouth brooding. She may have some fry. And then it's very frequent for the males to just eat the babies after they're done mouth brooding, like as soon as she lets go of them. And the male is super pretty. Like he's a rainbow when he's in spawning shape. But then you need 5-to-1 females to males is what they recommend. So I don't know. I'm kind of just feeling like maybe I could even put a 55 or something here instead, because these guys also eat plants. And so I've found that moss is the only thing they don't eat quickly. They'll still eat moss, but not quickly. And so anything that was in here, this used to be the lushest tank I had, even more lush than the one in the other room. And now it's just decimated. There's not a single plant in here because of these guys. They just rip it apart and then let it sit there and digest. Let the tank digest it, I should say. Now, then we've got my Malawa tank. We've got the red variety and the blue variety side by side in here. And I pull out the reds as I see them. But this is now the standard blue tank. And this one has a lot of immersed growth. but not a lick of algae because of all of the shrimp. There's so many shrimp in this tank. This is basically a shrimp tank. There's like 6 cories and shrimp in that tank. Now over here, actually we need to get rid of some of these, but in here we've got baby fry from the gouramis. In that other tank that I showed you guys, there's fry, and there are also a few fry that are bettas that are in here. This is the filterless, and I can tell that the nitrates are growing. I'll need to do a water change. This 2.5 gallon filterless, the way I can tell that is because the water lettuce is putting out roots, and it's not putting out a ton of runners. It's just growing new water lettuce. Can you guys see? You guys probably can't see the babies, but there's babies all up in here. Fish. And there's a whole bunch of baby fish right here too, like probably about 8 or 9 little fish all over in there. So there's that going on. Then we've got this tank, which is also wasser tang, and a lily that's all beat up, even though the top is not. But yeah, so this is the gourami tank, or gourami. This is the betta tank. He's a male. He's Rasbo. He's the tank boss. That's a female there. That's a female there, and then that's a male. So we have 2 males, and then there's another female, and 4 females in here. We have a few Stiphodon, and then we have Beckford Eye. We have the exclamation point Rasboras, and we have the green meanies, the green Kubota Rasboras. So also, come on, plug in. Plug it in, plug it in. So then we also have a tank here that is just like a ditch would be set up. And it is full of humpback lamias. And there are a few least killifish in here too. There's a pair. That's a least killifish right there. And then over here, we've got my bell-bottom strain. In here, this is supposed to be more algae than it is, because this is, watch me tap the top of this to give you guys an idea. This is my live food, one of my live food tank sources, but this is the scud tank. There you go. Now you see them all. So that's where I get my scuds to feed my bettas and my gouramis. Here's more of the inlay gouramis. Then we've also got the Lucanusi that are in here for the moment until they're done growing. Then I'll probably move everyone out of here, other than the small fish, and it'll probably just be for the Lucanusis and have some caves and stuff for them to spawn. But these are all male sunset gouramis, or thick lip, whatever you want to call them. And then, just so you know, these are my endlers and guppies that can tolerate soft water. They can tolerate like a 6.8, no problem, which not all guppies, live bears can at all. And then we got the red phantoms, and there's black phantoms, and then there's these purple tetras, which are really more like a blue tetra. And then over here, we've got my my bell-bottom, Paisley bell-bottom guppy project that I'm still working on slowly, secretly, and a bunch of females with different colors. So some of the females have yellow tails and black caudal areas. There's a wild endler in there for diversity. And yeah, so that's a hard water tank for sure. And then we've got this tank, which has rotten lilies in it, so that I have infusoria in it. And this has all sorts of babies everywhere in it. if we can get a focus on any of them. There's all these little baby bettas that are in here. It's just hard to see them, but they're all over in here. They're just really young. They're still like 2 weeks. Then we're almost done, folks, and then we'll go sit down and I'll answer your questions and get back to the chat. But I wanted to just talk about, or just show you guys the state of things, since we had some shade being thrown in the chat. So in here, I've got my adorable little samurai gouramis growing out chocolates. Got my rainbow fish, my luminatus, and my thread fins. And there's also more of the little beautiful little guys right here. There's a little female gourami. And then up here, oh yeah, here's the biggest male of the gouramis. They grow at such different rates. Here's another very active male of the gourami. That one, and then the one that just swam to the other side. This one's probably a little male. Can't tell for sure. And then over here, we've got another, these are my sulfur, wait, that's not right. My Ginga sulpharis albino guppy and a beta rubra. And then over here, we've got Hong's Loi apistos. And we've got Tinwini danios that are full grown, and some Fongzi rasboras that I'm going to try to breed again. But the problem has been that they're just a headache to breed with that long fin morph that I've been trying to breed. Haven't been able to get it to stick. Now the new kids on the block, all the beautiful little fish from Florida, they're in here. They got a big brine shrimp dinner last night, and baby brine shrimp, and some of the baby brine shrimp have now died. That's what those white dots are. And so I'll probably have to gravel vac it. But these definitely are Everglade-eye and not Gilbert-eye. But they're doing their thing. In here, this is a weird tank because we've got the Mickey Mouse bleeding heart style of the platy, but then we've also got a whole bunch of pregnant cherry shrimp, and I was down to 2 cherry shrimp in here, and I wasn't even like thinking that there were cherry shrimp. Like I wasn't even considering the cherry shrimp as like even being in this tank really. And all of a sudden they just exploded. I don't know like where they all came from. They just all came out of nowhere, and now there's like 5 or 6 pregnant females. There's some Rileys, whatever you want to call it. And the interesting thing about all the babies that are born from the bleeding heart Mickey Mouse platy is they're all white right now. There's a really pregnant female shrimp up there. Actually, all 3 of those are pregnant females, if you guys can see the yellow on their belly. But yeah, they've all got the Mickey Mouse tail, the little Mickey Mouse head image on their tail. But they have a few stripes, but they're not like that. They're not like mama or daddy. So I'm kind of wondering what happened there. And there's the big Hong's Loi male. He's hiding. And then in here we've got the Peclotia, however you want to say it, cuckoo catfish. We've also got, and this is another tank I kind of want to redo because we've got all these super mean. We got a couple cribs in here. We've got some banjo cats in here, some bumblebee catfish in here, and then we have all of the blue lip guys in here. And the blue lips are just meaner than heck. They eat all the baby cribs every time the cribs have baby. Yeah, these guys, they're super mean. They're big. And again, they're one that Lawrence gave me that I know is like super hard to find, and I should be very thankful.
but they're mean, and they dig and they make a mess and they rip out every single plant they rip up. I mean, this was water sprite here that was all bushy and doing great. And I thought maybe they'd leave it alone since it grows so fast. Look, they even undid the wisteria. I mean, you can see roots they've undone everywhere. So they're kind of a hassle as far as ripping up the tank goes. And then up here, we've got a betta grow out tank. We've got gudgeon tank. This is all algae, but by design. This is all basically moss ball stuff, and they love this. This is what they live in, and this is what they dig. That's the male right there. Females are on the other side. And these are empire gudgeons. And then these are my breeding pair that now have had a few rounds of my mock chiensis or mock chiensis wild bettas. He's heated. Look at him go. He's showing off. I wonder if actually, wait, is that even the yeah, that's the male. It almost looked like the female, and she was holding in her mouth, like holding babies because they're mouth brooders. But they'll make bubble nests and they'll mouth brood, so it's kind of a weird deal. And then in here, this is another scud tank. So let's see, can we scare some out? But I feed scuds to a lot of my critters, and then I enrich their tank with minerals. That's what this powder is on the mulm and on the food, or on the moss that they eat. And then I'll throw my extra duckweed and other stuff like that in there. But yeah, here's the betta machiensis. This is one rainbow shiner. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than also I've got my rice fish pond, mini pond, my little 12.5 gallon. And they're all in here, and they're in here with shrimp, with more of the Malawa, just the normal Malawa, no color morph. So that's that. That's the fish room. This is that shrimp pack too, just to make that clear. Like, this is not just baby fish. This is shrimp mostly, and they've been breeding like crazy. Those are all new. There's an adult size. There's an adult size. There's a baby. I mean, there's just babies everywhere. These yellow line shrimp have had so many babies. There's like 5 generations in here right now. And I'm just letting some of the generations grow up. What was interesting was they all came out neon green, and now they're starting to yellow up. I had to add more catappa leaves and jackfruit leaves, and they stopped turning green and started turning yellow. And I think it's the carotenoids in their diet. The fact that I have such soft water, I think that they're not getting exactly what they would need elsewhere. So yeah, that's the fish room right now. I think I will be reorganizing quite a bit of stuff though in the next year. Like, the fact that I have a 40 breeder full of shrimp, it seems kind of silly. I know it's been my pet project forever, but they used to be in there with fish doing just fine, and now there's so many of them that that culling becomes difficult. And then this tank is stuck until I can disassemble it or something. It's stuck like a puzzle. This tank has to come out first, so I either have to drain that tank down sometime or whatever. But yeah, that's what's going on. Oh, look, all the Lamias, humpback Lamias are begging. So yeah, now let's go back to the command center, to the computer. But that's the messy that's the mess.
All right, guys. Ooh. Okay, we should be good now. All right, so Now I'm back. How are we doing? How's everybody feeling? I'm sorry about that tangent, but now you know how all the tanks are doing too. So I didn't see any questions, or I mean, I didn't see any super chats or memberships or anything like that. I hope I'm not wrong. If I am, please let me know. I would hate to not acknowledge such a kind task. But where did I find my soft water guppies? I have been breeding those. They started as guppies that were in their water parameter said 7.2 or higher, basically. And I started keeping them in that, and they would have deficiencies and all sorts of bent spines. So I was selected the ones that looked best over and over and over. And then I would give them supplemental food versions rather than in the water, and hoping that the calcium, like in Cuttlebone, if I would shave that off and freeze it with garlic and other pastes and things, that would help them. Also, I'd crush up eggshells into the filter and let that go into the water, but I'd make sure to keep the pH low. And by low, I just mean under 7. I don't mean truly low. So that's how I kind of, over the course of probably 5 years, made a soft water guppy, or a guppy that seems to now do fine. How often should I feed my fish and my Corydoras? Someone told me to stop feeding daily. It depends on how much you're feeding and of what. If you're feeding them live food and they eat all of it within 3 minutes, go ahead and feed them daily if you'd like. If you are, and also if you have a tank like mine that's full of plants and little microscopic organisms that are going to be eating the leftovers and snails and things like that, then then your food shouldn't go to waste. It should still get eaten. But if you have a sparsely decorated tank without many plants and much surface area for bacteria and stuff like that, then you can feed them 3 times a week if it's good quality food. But I wouldn't be giving them flake food every day just because you want to or whatever. I mean, just because that's what you've decided. I'd assess like how much they're eating. Like really, your fish should eat once they've found the food. They should eat it within 3 minutes, and that should usually fill them up. That's kind of the little rule. Now, there's specialist animals like puffers and things that's not going to be true for. But for the most part, that's kind of true. And if you have leftover food, you should either gravel vac it. And I don't mean sucking up all the mulm. I mean specifically trying to get the little curly cues of food that have rolled up from flake or whatever. And then, the other thing is look at your foods. And if it's like an algae wafer and it says 50% wheat or soy, or that's the first ingredient, then I wouldn't be feeding that every day. I would maybe feed that once in a while, if at all. Then maybe look for something that's first ingredient is spirulina or vegetable mix or whatever it may be, but something that makes sense, something that is actual green food, green plants. Same with your carnivores. They also need plants too. So you want to give carnivores in the wild, they can just eat fish, because those fish that they're eating, they eat grass, they eat algae, they eat whatever it is they eat, and then they get eaten, and therefore their stomach contents, all those nutrients get absorbed by the big predatory fish. In our aquarium, if they don't have a whole ecosystem, then they can't do that. And so just giving your piranha meat isn't really the way they live in the wild. Or even if it's something like that you'd think of as a apex predator that should just eat meat. So there's really there's really a lot to be said, and there's a lot of different schools of thought on feeding fish. Some people hardly ever feed them. If they're nano fish or small, like an inch and a half or under, feed them once in a while. If you have a tank like mine, you could see all those scuds and things. they'll find food. Now, if you have no filter, or you've got like clown gravel filter that's a 1/2 inch deep, and you've got all plastic and ceramic decorations, but not really any plants, or all like silk or plastic plants, then you need to feed, and you need to clean up the excess food or have a big filter. So it's all kind of like a hard thing to answer, but I mean, I tend to skip days here and there. In the wild, they don't eat every day necessarily. Small fish, some need to, but other than that, they won't. MX Rider, thank you so much. I appreciate you appreciating the response. $5, really appreciated, my friend. Really appreciated. So today, the other cool thing, and I want to thank you guys, is, you know, I put out a lot of content, and I wouldn't watch it all. I try to do some scatter shots so that there's something for everybody, so to speak. But I just got an alert that told me this info, and that is views, 207,000 watch hours. And look how much money, guys, $1.7 thousand in a month it's estimating. Now, that will get knocked down 30%, but it's still really cool to see. That's back up where we were about a year ago, and then there's this dip. And so, I really just appreciate you guys watching. And that 1.7, that's super chats, that's memberships, which is like half of that money there. So I can't thank you guys enough for, even when people are like, oh, it's only $1 or $1.99 or whatever. I just wanted to say thank you. I noticed that the other day. And we got 1,000 new subscribers in the last week, actually, week and a half. So it's really awesome. And I hope everybody who's coming aboard is doing well. Oink Master asked earlier if you have any experience with spontaneous fish blindness, juvenile Texas cichlid, no apparent reason. Eyes have grayness, not eye spots. Seems confused, not eating. Yeah, there are a lot of fish. So if you leave the lights on 24/7 while danios are growing as fry, a certain percentage, I believe it was somewhere like almost 20%, will grow up with blindness in one or both eyes. And it's because their whole body is a spinal column, and it basically overstimulates those nerves. Whereas in the wild, they're going to be under the leaf duff and under the plants, and in a pretty dark area. Most of our tropical fish, honestly, they're in flooded forests or creeks and things with plants, or they're in black water where the sunlight just doesn't penetrate super strong. So it could either be from line breeding, it could be an illness, or it could be from too much light when they were babies, which is something that's out of your control. And sometimes it impacts them in later life. And what it is they could never see that well. And they end up basically kind of like, for lack of a better word, burning out that circuit, unfortunately. Coro, you know why we watch and our members? Because, oh, thank you. I'm not going to say that. I don't want to be that full of myself as reading your comment, but I appreciate that, Coro. Electro Fry, you got a merch store yet? Yeah, I've had a merch store for years. It's just, it's Teespring, and I've never like put a lot on there for profit. Like I almost always give all the money from the merch to a nonprofit, like to Dr. Anthony's Research Center. I've donated it to my own nonprofit that me and Ivan Mikolji are running, the Green Earth Alliance. Given it to Son of Running River, to Project Piaba, to Shoal, to the Goody Ed working group projects. So I kind of like giving my merch to the cause of preservation. I just feel like it's a good balance. So yeah. Emma, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. I really do appreciate that. $9.99, out of my mind. Gonna find some fish, going overtime. Thank you very kindly. So I told you guys it's Friday the 13th, and I'm gonna be telling you guys a fish horror story or two. So one of the weirdest things, or like unexplainable things, going on in my fish room was about 5 years ago, right when the channel was new. And I think there's still a video called like Shrimp Massacre or something, which looking back on it, oh, you poor young naive. Actually, back then it wouldn't have mattered on YouTube, but now like that's just like demonetized. Don't show anyone. Don't promote. Bury in a black hole. Um, but what happened was I had a shrimp tank on the floor, and I had a rack of 3 tanks, and the peacock gudgeons I had that were spawning, they were a spawning pair. I knew they'd had babies before, and I think I kept about 20 of the babies. They ate a lot of them. I let them just colony breed, which is typically what I do. I'm not looking for 100 gudgeons at a time, but so I have this tank set up, and the gudgeons one evening jumped out of the tank and over a gap about this big down into the shrimp tank. And I just had baby shrimp, and they were blue dreams when this was just Coral. They were just they're from Lucas Brett's 2017, I want to say. The Bluest Blue Dream line is what they were called. And they were when he won the Aquatic Experience, and then the American or North American, the Americas shrimp for Neocaridina for the best shrimp in show. And so I got some of those original shrimp that for making his art. So for Lucas Brett's, if you didn't know, I did a bunch of his channel art. Pretty much all the channel art that you see on there I've done. So I had them, they had babies. I was extremely excited because I only had enough credit or whatever to buy like 6 of them from him. Like he it was a waiting list of like a year at that point. And the gudgeons jump out of there, and in the morning I go and look in the shrimp tank, and I'm gonna do a video about how these little baby shrimp, which they weren't baby, they were like maybe half an inch, so like halfway to adulthood, 3 or 4 months old. I was going to do a video about them and how good they looked, and how we had like, I want to say 25 or 30 babies that came out of two parents spawning. And I go in there and I see one. There is one, and then I start looking around and I see shrimp that are pink, and I'm like, I don't have any cherry shrimp in here. I don't even know what a pink shrimp is. And I realize they're not a pink color morph. They're not a red color morph that I'm seeing wrong. They are a dead blue dream or blue velvet at the time. And they turn pink after an hour to 4 hours of being in the aquarium water. So they had been killed recently. They hadn't turned clear yet. They were still pink. And they looked like little cooked prawns, but they'd all been either ripped in half, or their head was gone, or just their tail was gone, or all their legs were gone, and they were still twitching around, a few of them. So I had one shrimp that I rescued, and what I found in there was I found a little one of the peacock gudgeons that had been 2 or 3 racks up and over, and it had jumped out and gone in there. And I thought, man, that's insane. So I find that, I get it out of there, and I'm like, what a bummer. What a, I should have had a lid or on either one of the tanks. So then a week later, I still haven't put lids on the tanks, and that tank is just kind of sitting there with one shrimp and some snails in it, like nothing in it really anymore, in this 20-gallon that it was sitting in. And I was gonna get some new shrimp for it. Well, all of a sudden, I already removed the peacock gudgeon, put it in another tank farther away down the line, and I come back and there's another peacock gudgeon in the tank. And I am like, what the heck is going on? I totally caught this fish. Am I going crazy? Like, it was yay big, and it couldn't have been born in there or anything, or hiding in there. It was like, how were there 2 in here? So another one must have gone in there. I, at this time, only knew I had the 2. And I saw one in the tank above still, and one that had jumped down. Well, it turns out that one of the babies had grown up, and I had a lot of plants. I had a lot of these PVC tunnels for them, and I didn't know where the heck they'd gone. And the babies, the ones I grabbed out, I put them somewhere else. And the few that must have hid out in there grew up without me noticing. So it turned out I had 5 peacock gudgeons, but 2 had made the leap, a male and a female. And they must have been chasing each other for sexy reasons, in that they both jumped together, which is really odd. So, oh yeah, also, guys, happy birthday to George, to Aqua Balls. If you guys like ball pythons, you guys like aquariums, angelfish, discus, cichlids, you name it. That guy has bred it, is working on breeding it, or he keeps it. Check out his channel. Plus, he's one of the nicest guys I know around here. Happy birthday, George. Mazel tov. So, I get the peacock gudgeons out of there. This time I'm like, oh, okay, I guess some grew up and they were subadults and they were still in there. Well, I'm done, whatever, moving on. So about 4 months later, I've added new shrimp in there. And they just seem to be not reproducing. I don't see any pregnant ones really, or if I do see a pregnant one, I don't see babies ever. And I'm wondering, like, what is going on? And I paid more money to Lucas. Like, I actually paid out of pocket for those ones. And I think it was like, I bought like $200 worth or something. And at the time, I want to say they were 10 or 15 bucks. Like, it was when they were at their high price. And the baby, so the male and female that had jumped into that tank had babies. So they massacred all my shrimp, all the babies, not to eat, just to rip apart, to be little butts, just to be a pain in my, you know what. And they rip them apart. They leave them in pieces, crawling, like literally no back legs, just the front legs, crawl, like massacre scene in the morning. Enough so that I was like, there's shrimp. So I'm not usually overly sentimental about finding them when they've died, but this was like a lot, I had a flashback to when my cat broke into my chameleon tank, and I had 5 baby chameleons. And literally, I walk upstairs, and the tank is tipped over and shattered, and all the bedding and everything's all over. I was about 9 or 10 years old, probably. And this was the first like reptile or pet that was like mine. The cat was kind of mine, but yeah, whatever. These were mine in my room. I took care of them. And there was one that was ripped in half and a tail that was twitching. And I was like, oh my gosh, as a kid, And then literally the cat is sitting there with its paw on another one. And it's literally got, his claws are in the back hindquarters of this little chameleon. And it's trying to get away. And like when I walk into the room, the cat is just looking at me calmly, and it's clearly like already messed up the disemboweled it or whatever. So it didn't have much time left anyways. But I had a bad experience in my mind already about a massacre in the tank. So that tank, I thought, all right, well, we'll restart it. We'll get the new shrimp in there, spend more money. And I thought, I'm just not good at shrimp, is what I was thinking in my head at this point. Well, then we found out that there was baby peacock gudgeons in there. So they'd literally gone in there, had a massacre, turned them on, they had their babies, and then I scooped them out, and their babies hatched. And since it was a shrimp tank, nothing ate the babies. So as those babies grew out over the next 4 months, once they got to that 4-month mark ish, they started eating shrimp again. And gudgeons can be very sneaky. They must have known that they were not wanted there or not welcome or something. Because I looked in that tank a lot. I filmed videos on that tank, and we never saw the little baby gudgeons. So anyways, that is the story of the shrimp gudgeon massacre horror story. And to this day, you can hear the screams of those poor little 30 young shrimp souls. So another little trauma, I guess you'd call it, that we had in the fish room, or a mess up that I want to relay so that you guys don't ever do it, is I put a whole pack. So I bought a pack of alder cones from a botanical company about 4 years ago. And I put a whole pack of them in my tank, thinking, these are alder cones. They're in my backyard. I know what they are. They fall in lakes and stuff all the time, whatever. So I put a whole pack into a 10-gallon, probably 40 little alder cones that were not boiled or anything like that to reduce the strength. And it took the pH in the tank from 7.4-ish to 4.8 overnight. And I actually did have some buffer of KH and GH in that tank too. It was at like probably 5 or 6 for both of them, somewhere like that. GH was probably at like 7 or 8. The KH was probably at 4 or 5. And the TDS was like maybe 120. But needless to say, there is the possibility of you killing all your fish and plants and your bacteria cycle by adding too many tannins too quickly. Now, there's a really easy way to get around that. 1, boiling it mitigates a lot of that. 2, boiling also gets rid of some of the benefits that are in active botanical compounds. But you can also just, add less, not put 40 cones in, start with 2, wait a few days, do a water change, add more, see where it goes. Yeah, you could do that. You could just not be an idiot like I was. Welcome back, Lady R. Discordia, hello. Lady R, let's see here. Sorry if I missed the answer to question you sent. What did you send? Here's a horror story. I've seen a tetra tank, 50 green neon tetras get overdosed. None made it out alive. What'd they get overdosed on? Lady, where is your question? Let's see here. Yes, Discordia remembers the infamous. So there was another infamous case that was scary, and it prompted me to make a very, very researched episode, to a point where I don't know why I spent like a week researching what illnesses you could get from an aquarium, like what you could theoretically get and then what you were likely to get as far as bacteria, anything from algae, bacteria, viruses, mold, anything like that. And it is a pretty long list of things that you can catch from your aquarium. Is it likely? No. Especially if you have a balanced tank that doesn't smell like sewage, then no, you'll probably be fine. But in theory, there's case history of things, including a herpes virus that jumped and went airborne and was killing angelfish. And they had to get rid of over 1 million angelfish in the western farms of Florida, which is really crazy. We learned about that when I was down in Florida this last time. They said that it was airborne to the point where it would be on your clothes, and you could go out, go to lunch, then go visit your buddies who's a fish farmer, go to his farm, go walk down the aisle of his ponds, and within a few days they'd all be dead with these sores all over them. Really crazy. Yeah, I'm in StreamYard, and sometimes it hides comments, questions, things like that. But Lady R, okay, I was just inquiring. I was just inquiring about your platies and if you were open to the prospect of selling a couple of the females to me. Yeah, probably. Let the babies grow up. A little more, like another month, and then I might. Plus, then it'll warm up a bit. But yeah, I think that would be doable because honestly, I got them to put in a pond outside, and that's that's the end of the story. They're not in the pond; they're taking up a tank space. Discordia, okay. Michelle Barnhill, hello. Have you ever had luck with long-term undergravel filters, melted butter? Yeah, I've had a few tanks that have had undergravel filters. I had a tank that was a hybrid, and actually, it's the tank. If you were watching the stream at the beginning, it's the second tank I showed. It's in the living room, and it looks like a normal tank. It's got a hang off the back, but it also has a piece of PVC with holes drilled all up and down it, and then there's a bag of volcanic rock in a filter media mesh, and then it's packed with sand and silt and clay around that, and the pipe goes through and then up, and there's a little doorway that I can open or close as like a little hatch or cave for fish to go in, but that lets the water osmotically just soak in without there being crazy flow. And it also opened up into not to a plenum, not an undergravel filter with a lift tube per se. Instead of a lift tube, it had the open tunnel. But long term, yeah, 3 years. That's about what I've done too. All right. Does anybody have any other questions that I'm missing? Because, like I said, Teespring, StreamYard can be very annoying with that. Now, again, you guys, I am feeling a bit run down this week. I've been having autoimmune issues, and they cause inflammation, and they just cause me to be really tired. So I was going to tell one more spooky story of the aquarium kind, but I'm happy to answer more questions in the meantime. All right. Sky Dancer, hello. Ira, hello. Thank you, Lady R. So, speaking of creepy things you can get from your aquarium, I had a pleco that I got from Aquatic Arts. And this pleco was beautiful. This was the first fish I actually got from Aquatic Arts. This was probably 5, almost 6 years ago now. And I got this pleco, and it was full grown. It was a lemon, blue-eyed short fin lemon pleco. And it was beautiful, like probably 5 inches long, like very large for its size, and very beautiful, very, very orange and lemony, kind of cheddar cheesy almost, and just striking crystal blue eyes. And within about a week of it being in my tank, I noticed it had a sore on its side. Well, in this tank, it was a 40 breeder, and I had wood cats, and I had Tatia mosaicas. And Tatia mosaicas are adorable. They look like little tiny orcas. Sometimes they're called ninja catfish or orca catfish. Now they've actually found 2 different species that have names, but at the time they were all just called the one. And the woodcats are very shy. They hide, and they're a nocturnal creature for the most part. But you could feed them like blackworms and stuff at night and have a flashlight on or your phone light, and they would strike things really hard. And it was fun to watch them eat. They'd come out of nowhere, and they had all these crazy barbels, and they were just so accurate at finding food. And they'd come to the surface and splash, even though they're these little 2.5-inch fish. So they were really cool. And at the time, they were like $50 a piece. Well, these little black and white fish that look like Free Willy, they started one afternoon. I noticed 2 of them were out in the open, and I was like, that's weird. And one of them, I could see its rib cage and its pectoral joint through the side of it. And I was like, holy cow, something took a chomp out of that fish. And I thought that's crazy, you know? And then the other one that was out in the open, it had no tail. It had no fins. So the caudal part of the tail, the caudal peduncle, was rotten and just gone. And the fish was swimming and twitching and then going on its side and then swimming and twitching out in the open. And I was like, that's so weird. Well, then the pleco that afternoon, and I started treating with everything at that time. Like, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I used antibiotics, gram negative, gram positive, and I used fungi, API fungal cure, ICX, and general cure all at once. So at this point, I'm worried, and I called a couple friends and I took pictures. 6 hours later, I come down, and the one that I had seen its rib cage, its whole side was gone all the way to the skull. You could just see a half of a fish. And I was like, what ate it? You know, I had some cories in there. I had some, another set of plecos. I had some blue seam, starlight plecos. And then I also had, the lemon pleco that was new. And I thought, oh, it's gotta be the new pleco. And so I talked to Aquatic Arts. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, we have no idea, but you know what? We'll send you a new pair. Like, I had bought one. They sent me a new pair of adults. And that made me feel a little bit better about what was going on. But then I was like, oh, it must be their fish that was the issue then. They were so nice about it. Well, the next day when I come in and check on the fish after I fished the two that were really sick out and put the one that was still barely alive in another tank. Well, then I start to see all my cories, and they all have their bellies missing with their intestines coming out. And it was really a disturbing sight. And the same thing was true of the lemon pleco. It was fine everywhere else. It seemed happy and healthy, but its onodontodes were like basically chewed away, and its belly, which usually looks kind of like a cinnamon roll if you see them up on the glass, their intestines are like a spiral. That was open and just kind of hanging out like tattered rags. And it is, yeah, it still bugs me. And I could see though that it had eaten a bunch of snails, because its stomach, some of it was clear and you could still see it wrapped around in there. And there were all these little tiny ram's horn snails that were in this big adult pleco's stomach. They didn't look like they'd been crushed either. They just looked like they'd eaten it. So I kept them. I got gloves on because I was like, I don't know what's going on here. There wasn't any predatory fish in there that I thought could have done it. I thought maybe maybe there's like a bug in here or something that's doing, like some sort of like planaria or leech or something that's coming and just chewing on things. I didn't know what it was. And I took it to our local university after putting it in a Ziploc bag, freezer bag, and it turned out they cut open the lemon pleco. They cut open the snail within the lemon pleco's stomach, and they got a positive test for something called Vibrio. Now, Vibrio is usually shellfish poisoning. It's what causes bad shellfish, quote unquote, bad shellfish. Like when you get seasick, or not seasick, when you get shellfish poisoning from eating shrimp or oysters or whatever on the beach, when there's a warning not to do so. It's one of the main ones. Now, in humans, we are much more robust than fish. This bacteria evolved to target fish, especially, unfortunately, catfish. So it was like the plecos, the cories, they were both done from the start. The Tatio mosaicas, done. Because that was the other thing, was there were a few, what were they? Ember tetras, I want to say, maybe rummy nose tetras. There were a few tetras that were totally fine. And they said, this is really odd. How hot are your tanks? And I wasn't sure if the heater had gone out or turned up, or if something was off. But I was like, I think 76 to 78, 80 degrees maybe. And they're like, well, Vibrio is a cold water, thing usually. And so I was like, well, that's weird. They're like, yeah, we find it like in Seattle, like on the beaches here in Northern California to Alaska, and on the East Coast up in Maine and Massachusetts and all that. And it turns out that a freshwater snail, so it's the saltwater bacteria, it got into a freshwater snail and it mutated to the point where it was able to do the damage it can do in saltwater, but it did it to catfish in freshwater. And it started by, it wouldn't have ever gotten a foothold if it weren't for that dumb pleco eating the snail. It lives in snails. Now, there's a lot of parasites that live in snails that can be dangerous in the world at large. I'm not just saying for your aquarium, but there's just, snails have this odd relationship frequently with parasitic creatures, wasps, bacteria, viruses, you name it, like just all sorts of stuff. So kind of odd, but they tested it and they were able to say by culturing it on agar on a petri dish that it was warm water Vibrio. It could stand up to 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and it was a flesh-eating bacteria, essentially. And so they told me to get rid of that tank, to pour an entire thing of bleach in it. Yeah, it's very unusual, very weird. It spread to one other tank that was a 5-gallon, I want to say, to the quarries, but it never infected the danios and shrimp and stuff. And so it was overlooked. But when you saw several good-sized catfish with it piling up, and it killed within 24 hours, of signs, and it was like doing damage at like half an inch every 2 hours or something on the big catfish. Really crazy. Yeah. So that is my Friday the 13th horror story setup. Guys, I hope you guys have had a wonderful evening. I hope that you guys go watch someone else. And yeah, other than that, did I miss anything? I'm just looking. So yeah, I think I am going to get out of here, guys. But thank you so much. I just want to thank you for being you guys, for watching the stuff I put out, especially like the deep dives and the real nerdy birdie stuff, and being such a great community. For the most part, everybody gets along so well. And I'm not mad at you for being a troll. I'm going to call you a troll and stirring up stuff about saying all my tanks had algae and the fish were all dead or whatever. I don't remember what the accusations were, but it was an opportunity to show off the tanks, as we usually do at least once a week. A lot of people are like, do you have an update of your tanks? And I'm like, yeah, come to the live stream. We do it once a week, if not twice. But yeah, I'll probably have another video out from the Florida trip. We still have like 7 or 8 videos to do there. So I'm excited that's a thing. Yeah, let me know if you guys have, it's not you, Craig. But I appreciate all y'all, and the trolling only fuels his power. Yes, I know, and of course I indulge it. I can't help it. Leave me alone. All right, guys. So I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go take a bath in ice water. Like my veins. Wait, that doesn't sound good. That sounds like that could be. Yeah, I'm not different things than what's flowing through my veins. There's ice water flowing through my veins, and I will be taking a bath in water just as cold as my veins. Not taking a bath in the ice water out of my veins. Never mind. Overthinking it. You know what, guys? I think the problem is really that there's not enough Florida man. Too much Seattle man has been creeping in, and we're gonna need it to give it the old yeet try here. All right, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you so much for joining me, little ladies and fellas. I'll talk to you next time on The Secret History, living in your aquarium. Yeet, yeet!